Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Welcome. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, the great GSMC Podcast Network. So much content. Go check it out. Whatever topic you can possibly think of, whether it's finance, movie analysis, TV show analysis, food analysis, and then of course football and all types of sports. Go and check out the content. I am your host, you know who it is, Kayvon Izami, going solo dolo as always on this beautiful Saturday afternoon is when I am recording this, and I hope you guys are listening to it as soon as possible. Of course, it will come out Saturday night, early Sunday morning. And then whenever you're listening to it, however you're listening to it, and wherever you're listening to it, we always appreciate you for being a part of our show. This show would not be the show that it is without the great listeners that you guys are. Giving some great feedback as always too. Got a couple of reviews recently that were pretty good. Love to see it. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. It was anonymous, of course, but you can always reach out to me and let me know you said that, because I do appreciate that. Got some good tweets we'll go through, and I know you guys, everyone's coming at. Look, this is the thing about doing radio like this, right? Or doing sports, really just doing anything where you're putting your voice out there, and you're putting your takes out there because they're out there for good, right? So let's say I got some things wrong, right? I got the New Orleans Saints wrong, and you guys are sure quick to let me know. But you know what? I appreciate that, because that shows, one, you're listening, and two, you care. You care what I have to say, and you want me to take onus for when I'm wrong. And I respect that. That's why I rub it in your face when I'm right. That's how it goes. And right now, the New Orleans Saints look like a very good team. Now, I'm standing by what I said. They're not going to win a playoff game, okay? And I went a little bit far by saying they won't make the playoffs at all. I get that. But right now, they're a good team. They're getting Michael Thomas back. They're getting healthy. And they're going to win some games. And, you know, they might even become first in the NFC. I don't think that will happen. I think Green Bay will take that spot. Or maybe someone that wins the NFC West. I would say Seattle, but their defense is just atrocious. But look, I'm telling you, once it comes playoff time, you have to be able to throw the ball down the field. You have to. Unless you have a superb running game where you can just run, play great defense. The Saints have a great running back who's a switchback, and he's better at catching the ball than he is actually running it. But Drew Brees can't throw the ball deep down the field. He can't. And if you're going to tell me he's going to go to a place like Green Bay and win in December or January, that's not happening. It's not, because he cannot throw the ball down the field in general at this age, and he's not going to be able to do it in a place like Green Bay or even Seattle. And we'll see. You know, I'm putting my takes out there. I could be wrong, or I could stand corrected, and we'll find out about that. But I do love that you guys are letting me know that I'm wrong, and please keep that coming all day long. I want to hear it from you, and I want to hear your thoughts and opinions too, and I'll let them right out on this show of your picks and your hot takes, and we can compare. I know a lot of you guys believe that Green Bay is phony to for lack of a better word. they're not as good as their record shows. And I'm somewhat on board with you there. I think they're a good football team, and I think with Aaron Rodgers, anything is possible. But we've been talking about it all year long on this show. That management team, that front office has let down Aaron Rodgers, okay? This is a team in this type of COVID year that could win the entire thing, just like they could have won it last year. Just like last year, we could have saw an Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes State Farm Super Bowl. You know how those two are always in the State Farm commercials together? Imagine a Super Bowl like that. But no. Why? Because they didn't have enough talent to go up against Green Bay. And to go up against San Francisco. And San Francisco ran right down their throat all day long. And they don't have enough weapons on the offensive end, and they don't have enough big boys up there to block that run game. So they have problems. Now, Aaron Rodgers, being as great as he is, he makes up for that. And that's the beauty of how good he is. So because of Aaron Rodgers, there's always a hope. But I'm on a lot of y'all's opinion on board as well, because they have Davante Adams is looking like the best receiver in the league. He's number 2 to me. I got Julio 1. I got Davante Adams 2. He is on a tear. And in a couple years, I think he is going to be the far by best receiver, not DK. I like DK Metcalf a lot, and we'll do one day top wide receivers. But Davante Adams is special. He is special. But they need more help. They should have made a trade for Will Fuller. They didn't want to give up, a second-round draft pick? You weren't even willing to give up a second-round draft pick for Will Fuller? I get it. You don't want to pay him. Well, you only have Aaron Rodgers for so long. And you've only won 1 Super Bowl so far, and it's been a disappointment. But Rodgers keeps them alive and keeps them in it, so that's all that has to be said for now. Look, we've got a jam-packed show for you guys today. I always get off on on a tear right when we start the show, so I forget to lay it out. So again, this is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami, going solo dolo. As always, we're going to do a couple segments, and then as always on Saturday, we'll bring in my guy, Emmett Wyman, who hosts the GSMC Fantasy Football Show. You can go check him out on any podcast platform under the GSMC Podcast, and he'll give you all great fantasy advice. But he's going to come on here, as he does every Saturday, to give you guys the fantasy advice that you need for my show. There's a lot of teams on a bye this week. I know if your team has Falcons or Chiefs players like mine do, then you are going to have to replace some of those players for a bye this week. So he's going to help you out with all of that stuff. We'll talk a little bit of football as well. And then from there, we've got a lot more to talk about. Look, we had a good Thursday night. It's not often where you get a really good Thursday night football game. Usually a lot of these Thursday night football games, they try and make it not the best game because it's 2 teams playing on a short week. Everyone's tired. They try and make it a division game so you don't have to worry about prepping and planning too much because you already know the teams in your division pretty well. And this was a division game, but it was a good one, and it was an important one. The Indianapolis Colts versus the Tennessee Titans. And let me tell you, the Colts put it to the Titans. They put it to the Titans, and it's bringing up the question now of, are the Titans the team that we didn't think they were? They last year, they end the year on a super hot note. They make it all the way to the AFC Championship game before they run into Mahomes. And then we all just assume they're going to come into this year, which they do. They play great. They start out 5-0, or I think it was 4-0. And then they've slipped a little bit since. Derrick Henry hasn't looked the same. Tannehill, I hate to say it, he hasn't looked the same. And Mike Vrabel, what is going on with your defense? That defense is awful. It's the worst defense in terms of pass pressure, in terms of quarterback pressure. It's the worst defense in terms of getting sacks. There is a lot of problems with that team right now. What we're going to talk about is, are the Titans fake? Are they phony? Are they really a 6-2 team that can wreak havoc like they did in the playoffs last year? Or did we kind of I don't want to say, overjudge them into the point where they're not a good team, but did we put too much stock into Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans? That is something we're going to get into in segment number 2. But I want to start the show off on a different spin here. And look, we've got a lot of great games coming up this weekend. Today, Saturday, we've got some really good college football games. Now, there's a lot going on in the college football world right now. And if your team is playing, you should be very excited because there are a lot of canceled games because of COVID. And it's not funny. I don't mean to laugh because obviously, as I've preached about for the last 3 months on this show, COVID is serious, it's scary, and it is not going away anytime soon. But the reason why I laugh when I say that is because it's really just out of hand now in college football. And it's not because of what anybody's doing wrong. It's just because this is what's happening in our country right now. And it's crazy to wake up on a Saturday and realize that there's about 20 games that are not happening today because of COVID. And it's not even that people are getting positive tests with COVID. It's because of the contact tracer. So if 1 or 2 players get it, well, usually there's about 5 or 10 or maybe 20 players that are around those 2 players. Well, they immediately have to go into quarantine because of contact tracing, which is smart, by the way. I'm glad that the NFL and college football is doing this. It's very smart. This is how you don't allow outbreaks to happen. So I'm very glad that college football is doing this. But what I'm trying to say is my point. This is going to keep happening. This is going to keep happening. And we're very lucky we've gotten to week 11. We're very lucky in the NFL. We've gotten to week 10. But we need to just realize that this is going to keep happening as the cases rise throughout the country. They're going to rise in the sports world again as well. And we all hated when sports shut down. I don't think we're going to get to that type of point again, but it's just something to keep your eyes on. So be smart when you go out. Be sensible. Wear a mask. Try and social distance as best as you can. Obviously, I don't want to say just because of the sake of sports, because that's wrong. And it's more important for the sake of our society and the health of every human being out there, of course. So for that reason alone, that's why you should do it. Now, if you're one of these people that don't wear a mask, I do not understand you and I never will, but maybe do it. Maybe you'll wear a mask for the sake of sports. So I'll put it out there that way. But we'll get into where college football is at. We'll get into some of the very big games that we have coming up on the NFL docket this Sunday. But I first want to start with this, and this is a little bit of off topic here, but I've changed my mind. And yes, while everyone just took a huge breath and said, what? Kayvon changed his mind? Yes, I can do that. That is allowed. Last time I checked, I'm allowed to change my mind. And it's not that I've changed my mind on Bill Belichik, because I do still think he is the greatest coach ever. And I do think he is the smartest coach I've ever seen. Everything he does with schemes and the way he prepares, it's the best I've ever seen. And I'll stay to that. I'm not going off that boat. But when I came into this season, I told you guys 2 things. I said the New England Patriots are going to be a good team, or I said they're going to win the AFC East because of Cam Newton and Bill Belichik. And I said mainly because Bill Belichick is going to still work his magic as a coach, where he's going to make it where they're the little pieces that they have, because they are a very bad football teams in terms of having good players. And that's no disrespect to the players on that team. They just do not have a lot of true players. I said that he's going to coach them up like he has been doing, and Cam Newton will play good football and they'll be fine. Well, neither has happened. Cam Newton in the first couple weeks played good football. Then he got COVID and things have gone downhill since. Now he's picked it back up the last couple of weeks against the Bills. He had an unfortunate fumble, and then he played well against the Jets. But what the main thing has turned out to me, and this is where I've changed my mind, is that Bill Belichick's scheme doesn't work good unless you have true players. And now before everyone freaks out, let me say this. This isn't just about Bill Belichick, okay? This is about every coach out there in any sport. Now, I want you guys to hear this sound first before I go any further. This is Bill Belichick. A reporter asked Bill Belichick, and he got straight up with Bill Belichick, and he said, you could tell he was a little timid to ask it, but he did his job. which was very impressive. And I wish I could shout the guy out, but I really didn't know. I don't know who it was. I heard the first name Tom, but I don't know who his last name is. So I don't want to say anyone where I'm not sure. But he asked Bill Belichick, the question was pretty much why has he drafted so poorly lately? He said, he pretty much said in a question was, the reason the team is the way it is this year is because there's not that much talent on the team. And the person to ask for that is the person that makes these decisions. And that's you, Bill Belichick. So this is Bill Belichick, and play this real quick, answering what's happened with the draft over the last couple of years.
Well, Tom, I'd say the most important thing to me is winning games. And I'm not going to apologize for our record over the last 20 years. I've seen a lot worse. So ultimately, try to put the best team on the field that we can to be competitive. And I don't really see that changing.
All right, so that's Bill Belichick, as you could hear. I know it was a little bit more quiet, but that's Bill Belichick answering that question. And he said, I'm not going to apologize for winning all those years, and nor should he, right? He shouldn't have to. But the question becomes this, and this is noted. This has been noted. Bill Belichick, as he has won more, he's pushed back on advice on the draft, right? It's not that Bill Belichick was always a poor drafter. He's done good. They still do a good job now, especially with the offensive line, but they don't have dynamic players. And if you go to their last 3 drafts, they got one guy that they have actually hit on. He's a right tackle out of Michigan. He's a guard, and they use him all over the O-line. And his name is, and I think I'm Michael Onwenu. I think I pronounced that right. I might have got that wrong. But his name is Michael Onwenu. He's out of Michigan, and he's a great player. He's a terrific player. He's played all over. But other than that, outside of him, it's just been a bunch of okay players. Even their first-round draft picks, N'Keal Harry, no, he's nothing good. The Jonah Williams, the corner out of Vanderbilt, Isaiah Wynn, the tackle, Duke Dawson, Sony Michel, these guys aren't anything spectacular at all. Just guys. And those are the first-round picks. We're not even talking about the later-round picks. So the question is, why? Why has this happened? And I think it's a couple of things. I think it's some very egotistical. I think it's arrogance. This has happened to coaches all around. And this is what I'm saying. I'm not just coming at Bill Belichick here. This is in all sports. This happens to guys like Bobby Knight. It's happened to guys like Greg Popovich. When you start thinking, because you win so much, that your system is the reason that you're winning these games. And this is my point. This is my question. How much emphasis do you put on the system? Out there listening to me right now, when you watch the games, when you talk about the games with your family, with your friends, with your girlfriend, boyfriend, how much do you talk about, man, that system that our coach put together, that game plan that our coach put together, that was terrific? Or is it, wow, Tom Brady played amazing today. Wow, Julio Jones, he just had a huge game for the Falcons. Wow, DK Metcalf, he won that game for the Seahawks. It's more of that, right? Look, the players win the games. Belichick's won 43% of his games without Brady. Players win games. Pete Carroll was fired twice. Twice! He then goes to USC. He gets a guy named Reggie Bush. He gets a guy named Matt Leinart and a bunch of legit players. Next thing you know, he wins title after title after title in college football. He wins. Gets fired twice, goes to USC, recruits some really good players. He wins. Then he goes to Seattle. He goes 7-9, 6-10, 7-9, 6-10. And then who comes? Mr. Russell Wilson. And everything changes. He goes to the Super Bowl. He wins the Super Bowl. Greg Popovich, arguably the greatest basketball coach ever, right? Arguably, I'm not saying for sure, but arguably. Well, look at how his team has been since Tim Duncan retired. Not very good. Not very good at all. He had a streak of making the playoffs for 18 straight years. Tim Duncan retires, they miss the playoffs. Look, I'm not saying coaching is pointless. And anybody that out there is listening is thinking I'm saying no, not at all. Please do not misread me. Coaches are very important. Very important. I couldn't just get up and go coach an NBA team tomorrow. It would be terrible. We'd be the worst team in the league. But this whole narrative that coaching makes the players, it's got to stop. The players are already great. Now, what coaching does is their system elevates the great players. Tim Duncan, he might have not won 5 championships if Pop wasn't his coach, but you can bet that he would have made some NBA finals. You can bet that he would have made the playoffs almost every single year because he is that good. The coaching system elevates the players to play with the other players. But without any players, and I don't mean normal dudes, I mean without any great players, the system is nothing. And Belichick is learning that for the first time this year. And look, this isn't just for sports. This is the case for life. Name a business. Name a business that doesn't have this same thought process. Look at Apple. Steve Jobs was there. He then left, and the company was in a dire situation. He came back and brought it back up to being on path of the trillion-dollar company that it is today. Look at Barstool Sports. They have made a bunch of mistakes. They had a TV show that lasted 1 episode. They've said things that they shouldn't have said, but it's still a company that is worth a boatload of money. Why? Because people love listening to Big Cat and Portnoy, and they listen to their podcasts. It's about the people. It's about Big Cat. People like to listen to Big Cat. It's not about the systems or the strategy or the company. No, it's about the people. Just like it's about the players. We love Big Andy Reid, right? We love Andy Reid. What was Andy Reid before Mahomes came? He was a good coach that won a lot of regular season games. Key word there, regular season. Mahomes comes in, he wins a Super Bowl within 2 years. Within 2 years. And those years, Bill Belichick, he could screw up on the draft. Why? Because he had Brady. And don't get me wrong, Belichick's system was huge. It was huge. And it helped throughout the 2 decades that Brady and Belichick were together. But it elevated them. It didn't create them. It wasn't who they were. No, Brady was who they were. Pete Carroll's strategies, they never worked anywhere. He went to USC, it worked. He got Russell Wilson, it worked. Monday Night Football ratings, they have been up this entire year. Why? Because they have guys like Steve Levy, Louis Riddick, and Brian Griese who people love to listen to. People turn on the TV not just to watch the game, but they want to listen to that person. Tony Romo got offered $17 million a year by CBS. Why? Because people tune in to listen to him. LeBron James beat Golden State Warriors in 2016, the second time around. Okay, that's the first time they lost in 2015. He had a guy named David Blatt as his head coach. In 2016, he had a new coach named Tyronn Lue. You think that LeBron won the championship in 2016 because they switched the coach? No. In 2016, his second and third best player, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, they didn't get hurt. In 2015, neither of those guys were there. They both got hurt. It's the players. John Harbaugh was going to get fired 2 years ago. John Harbaugh was going to get fired. He was going to be on the open market. He drafts Lamar Jackson. He gets an extension. The Steelers are the exact same team that they are this year that they were last year. The only difference, they have Big Ben as their quarterback this year. Last year, they were 8-8 to end the season. This year, they are undefeated, and they're the only team that has not lost a game, and they've already won 8 games. Only 8 games into the season. I'm not taking shots at these coaches, guys. Coaching is important. Coaching is very important. But strategy is so overrated. It's so overrated. The players mean everything. The players are what make it all work. And then the strategy can put it over the top. The schemes can put it over the top, but you're not getting anywhere near that mountaintop without the players. You're not getting anywhere near hiking Mount Everest without the right equipment. You can be in the best shape of the world. All right, you can have the strongest lungs. You can have the best tour guide. But unless you have the right equipment that is going to get you up that mountain, you're not making it. And unless you have the right players, you're not making it. Once you do have the right players, then the tour guide, then being in shape, that's what gets you to the top of Mount Everest. Once you have the right players, then Bill Belichik gets you to the Super Bowl. Players come first. The players are the most important. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, right around the corner, baby, don't go anywhere. We've got a lot to talk about. Are the Tennessee Titans and Ryan Tannehill, are they who we thought they were? Are they a little bit of a phony team? Maybe not that 6-3 that they are right now. Also, some big games this week. What games are you most looking forward to? Can the Buccaneers bounce back after that ugly loss? We'll dive all into it right after this. Don't go anywhere. This is the GSMC Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
We are back. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon. Hope everyone's having a beautiful day. It is Saturday over here while I record this show. I'm actually in Greenville, North Carolina. So you guys all know that I do the show usually from my home, Raleigh, North Carolina. Our studios are out in California. Big shout out and thank you to our great staff over there, especially my producer. You guys do an awesome job. Really appreciate it. But I'm here, in Greenville, North Carolina. As I've said before, my girlfriend is a med school student at ECU. Go Pirates, right? All of you that watch college football, them Pirates got that booty spanked to Cincinnati last night, I think it was. And Iowa, man, what is up with Minnesota? Minnesota, they had a great year last year, and it's just, they're bad this year. They are a bad football team, and I know they lost a lot of players to the draft, but they are a very bad football team, and they got that booty smacked against Iowa last night too, which I was very happy about because I bet on Iowa, so that was pretty cool to see. Minnesota's rough, but I have faith in PJ Fleck. I love PJ Fleck. He is a great football coach, and he's built that Minnesota program up. They're definitely having a disappointing year this year, but there's a lot of things that are going on this year that's out of the norm, and it will be interesting to see how he goes from here. I think he's built a foundation, a legit foundation. He's built this program up the right way. It's taken some time, but he's done it, and it's hard to do that. No disrespect to Minnesota, but it is hard to say to 18, 19-year-old kids, hey, come to Minnesota, the cold weather where you have to wear a jacket, 8 out of the 12 months it feels like. It's when you could go to Miami, Florida State, USC, you name it, they're the weather-wise. In today's day, that's actually a lot. Trust me, I do recruiting for my job that I do, Monday through Friday. And it's today, kids look into that type of stuff. They really do. But anyways, PJ Fleck, he's doing a great job, just having a rough year. And ECU. So I'm here in Greenville. ECU got that booty smacked, as I said, and I'm saying booty because here in ECU, it's the Pirates. So, it's like booty, that's like something you always say, but obviously in the pirate term. So just felt like it's necessary to say that. But Cincinnati is a very good team, so it's nothing to, put your head down on. You lost the game 55-17 to a number 7 ranked team in the country who could possibly make the playoffs this year if a lot of things break their way. And it has to be a lot of things because we have never seen a non-Power 5 school make the playoffs, but 1 year it's going to happen, right? You feel like 1 year it's going to happen. They will have to have some teams slip, but Clemson has already lost once. Now, if Clemson wins out and beats Notre Dame in the ACC championship game, then they'll be fine. Another thing, Notre Dame needs to be careful. They play a Boston College team that gave Clemson a run for their money 2 weeks ago. So Notre Dame needs to be careful. Now, I think they will. I think Brian Kelly is a fantastic coach, and he gets a lot of crap that he does not deserve. It is hard to win at Notre Dame. Even though they're a powerhouse program and kids love to go there, I get that, but you have to be academically sound. You can't be just, a kid that's barely passing your classes. No, you have to be a smart kid while also being really good at football. It is hard. Stanford, Notre Dame, those type of schools where they have these serious academic, standards, it's hard to recruit those kids. And, there's a bunch of them out there, but it's tough. It's tough. And Brian Kelly just every season has not just a winning season, a 9, a 10, 11, 12 some years, winning years. And, he has a knock for not winning the big game, and that's a fair knock. But if for some reason, and Notre Dame's too smart to do this, and that's why he's still there, but if Notre Dame was to get rid of them, to get rid of Brian Kelly, they would not find someone better unless they were hiring an Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, or Dabo Swinney. I mean, it's a very, very short list of of coaches that are better in college football right now than Brian Kelly. So I think Brian Kelly will have that team ready to go. I don't think they go into Boston College and smack them. No, Boston College, I'm telling you, they are a tough football team, and they're getting better and better. And it's going to be hard to go into BC and win that game, but I think they do it, and I think it's a close game and a fun game to watch. But what I was saying about getting back on topic here about, why I got into ECU losing to Cincinnati is, so I'm doing the show here in my girlfriend's apartment. We're right across from the med school. You can pretty much see it out of her apartment balcony here. And so she's in the other room studying. So imagine this, I'm in this room and I'm loud as all get out. I mean, I can't lower my voice. I'm just a loud person when I'm on the mic like this. It's how I like to talk. In my house, I already have people complaining all the time. Oh, great, it's Tuesday. Oh, great, it's Saturday. That means Kayvon's going to be screaming all day at his show. It's what I do. I can't help myself. So anyways, I start out the show, as you all know, this is the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kayvon Exami, and then I say going solo dolo, today. And I do my first segment, and then I come out and I get a glass of water to come back in and do my second. But, when you talk a lot, your mouth gets dry. So I got a glass of water, and my girlfriend goes, her name's Emily, she goes, why in the world did you say solo dolo? Like, that sounds so dumb. And just like that, and I was like, I don't know. That's just what I do. That's my saying. And I've been saying it for a while. And she's like, it sounds weird. So I was like, you know what, Emily? I respect your opinion, but I'm going to take it up with the listeners here. Okay? I'm going to take it up with you guys. I want to know, when I say solo dolo, going solo dolo, like I'm doing it solo, does it sound childish? That's how Emily put it. She didn't say dumb. She said childish. Does it sound weird, childish, dumb, whatever, when I say solo dolo like that? I want to hear your thoughts. Hit me up on Twitter at Kayvon_sports or at the company page at GSMC_football. You can also just comment and, comment on one of the shows where Apple Podcasts, Spotify, there's a place where you can write comments. Just do that there. Let us know what you think, because this is an argument. This is the debate that we are going to now have until you guys are the judges of it. So please, you guys can really save me a lot here, all right? If I can win this argument, might be able to win a couple more in the future. We all know how that works, guys, don't we? Talking to all my guys out there. So help a brother out and tell me solo dolo sounds awesome, because I think it does. Now, speaking of solo dolo, I am your host, Kayvon Izami. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Got a great show in store for you today. Just finished up segment 1 talking about how players are outdo strategy, and I think that's 100% true. And look, I never was on the side of, players don't do that, but I really did feel like there are some coaches, and I still do, that can really take a team to the next level, and they can. But what I've learned a lot from not just this year with Bill Belichik, but seriously, a lot of the past couple years and just all around in sports. Like you see it all over, even with Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson was never able to win a title without Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant and Shaq. Right after Shaq left, they got swept in the first round to the Magic. All right? Like, it's hard. Greg Popovich hasn't been able to do anything since Tim Duncan or Kawhi Leonard has left. It is hard to win without true superstar players, not just normal players, superstar players. And it's true, but I always felt with Bill Belichik, because of how such no-name players they've played with in the past, and they've still won so well and so easy, that he would be able to do it this year. I also put a lot of faith in Cam Newton. Now, I do still think Cam Newton can ball, and I don't think he deserves all the blame here, all right? Because Bill Belichik deserves most of the blame for putting this team together. It's just unfortunate that Cam Newton had to pick this team to go play for, because he really has nobody to throw to. I'm telling you, Jacoby Myers out of NC State is his best player, is his best receiver. That is hard to win football games in the National Football League when your best receiver is Jacoby Myers, and that's no disrespect to Jacoby Myers, but he should be your third. He should be your third best receiver, or maybe even your second, but he should not be your first. All right, and that's on Bill Belichik for not drafting well, and that's why people have been asking him these questions, and that's why he's trying to defend himself. And he's bringing up the past and doing it because he knows he's wrong. And this is I said this a couple days ago. Bill Belichick's MO, his whole thing is, if you look at any press conference in the NFL, you never see a coach talk the way that Bill Belichick does to the reporters. And by that, I mean he doesn't give them anything. He barely talks. He's pretty disrespectful in most cases. You never see that happen, ever. But with Bill Belichick, and his whole MO is, I do all the talking with what we do on the field. Just watch the game. That's where I do the talking. That's his whole MO. But this year, there is nothing to watch. So he's been having to explain more. And you've noticed he's been starting to explain more and more, which is starting to sound like more and more of an excuse every time he talks. And it's okay. Look, he's not perfect. He's not perfect. And I'm not saying that Tom Brady wins the whole debate of who was more important. That still is an open book. It still is, okay? Belichick was very important. But I do know this. Belichick does not win those Super Bowls, at least that many Super Bowls, without Tom Brady. Maybe he gets 1, maybe he gets 2, but he sure as heck does not get 6 without Tom Brady. That's for sure. And maybe Tom Brady gets 3, maybe Tom Brady gets 4, but he doesn't get 6 without Bill Belichick. You get what I'm saying? There is more to the player, but they need each other. They need each other. That Rams Super Bowl, Bill Belichick had more to do with that. That Falcons Super Bowl, Tom Brady had way more to do with that. If Tom Brady isn't on that team against the Atlanta Falcons, they get blown out by 50 points. Tom Brady brought them back in that game. All right? If Bill Belichik isn't the head coach against the Rams, I don't know. Maybe Tom Brady can make some big throws and they still win. That's the thing. The players are the most important aspect when it comes to especially professional sports. Especially professional sports. College as well, you still have to recruit and you have to get good players. And that's why, I mean, guys, come on. Just look at, when you look at the recruiting records, when you look at the recruiting rankings, and you look at the best teams in the country for college sports, it's pretty parallel. It's pretty equal. Usually the top 10 teams in recruiting are the top 10 teams in the country. Now, there's always a couple mixes and matches because when you have that much talent, that's when coaching takes it over, okay? That's when coaching can take it over, the notch. When you have two teams like Kentucky and Duke in college basketball, that's going to come down to the talent is the same, the players are the same pretty much, so who can coach better? That's when coaching is so important. The highest moment, which is very, very important. And I'm not trying to hate on coaches because coaching is so important. The system takes you over the top, but the players get you to the top. The players get you to the top. The system can take you over from there. That's all I'm saying. Bill Belichik is still a great coach. No ifs, ands, buts about it. But Tom Brady meant so much to that organization. All right, I want to dive into the Titans. We were talking about this earlier to start the show. The Titans, they got rolled up on by the Colts. The Indianapolis Colts come into Tennessee's house. They come into Nashville on Thursday Night Football, baby. And they don't even look back. They just give them the spanking. They give them the spanking 34-17. The Titans had fans in the stands too, so it wasn't one of those things where, was it really home field advantage? Yes, it was home field advantage. They had fans, obviously not a packed house, but they had fans, and they won, and the Colts won 34-17. And it just got me thinking, did we overindulge on this Titans team a little bit? Because think about this. Let me ask you guys a question. Everyone listening out there. When I ask you this, what's the ultimate strength of the Tennessee Titans? What's the first thing that comes into your head? It's got to be Derrick Henry, right? The run game. Everybody would say the run game. But obviously, to have a great run game, you have to have what? You need some big boys. You need some guys up front that do their thing. And what's getting glossed over about the Titans is you had Conklin leaving free agency. He went to the Browns. And look how much better the Browns O-line is this year, by the way, since he's joined them. It's a ton better. Taylor Lewan got hurt. He's out for the season. So a team that can catch you vertically on occasion, but it's not going to repeatedly, obviously, up to 40% of their offensive line is entirely different and much worse. So they're not winning by throwing the ball downfield, 15 times a game. That's just not going to happen. That's not how this team was built. It's not their DNA. And it's for sure not what Vrabel wants to do. That's not how Mike Vrabel has been a successful head coach in the past. His team is going to run the football. And look, Thursday night, Derrick Henry got over 100 yards, but it was an ugly 100 yards. It was, some big plays here and there, but mainly it was just a lot of pounding and carrying bodies, 3, 4, 5 yards until you get down. I think that's what ultimately is the Achilles heel with the Tennessee Titans squad. And we've seen it. It all started with the Pittsburgh game a couple weeks ago. They were down. That was the one game where they were down, but they actually did make a pretty good comeback, a valiant comeback. But once they get down, they're not built to score quickly. They have these long drives, and it's good for leads. It's just like Baltimore. You get up early, and then you just run the ball with Henry. But when you get down, it's hard to score a lot with this team to come back. So they're a team that has to be up at the end of the first, just like Baltimore. At the end of the first half, both of these teams need to be up. Otherwise, they get in trouble, like they did against the Colts last night. The Colts were amazing in the second half, and it was in all facets of the game. After the game, Ryan Tannehill was talking about complimentary football, but that's every piece, that's got to be every unit working together. That did not happen on Thursday night. They had a punter muff a punt in the end zone that went like 15 yards. Then they had a punt block, and the Colts took advantage of that. The Titans didn't even get close to taking advantage of the Colts' mistakes, which they didn't make many. And the thing about the NFL, and this is mainly the case in college football. It's not as much in the NFL, and that's this. There's in college football there's much more of a gap in terms of top level eventual Sunday talent, right? Where if there's an element of underachievement or perceived underachievement, it's a little more disconcerting. Listen, if you're consistently 30-point favorites in college football, but you're consistently having to eke out 7 to 10-point wins, it's probably time to recalibrate the expectations for that team, right? Like every week, okay, this team is supposed to beat this team by 40 points according to Vegas, but they keep squeaking by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points. It's like, okay, wait a second. This team's probably not as good as we're thinking. The NFL is so different because everybody was the best player in their college or the best player in their universities or close to it. They're all professionals, right? So there's no limit as to what they could do. Anybody can get clipped on any given Sunday. That's why they made a movie called Any Given Sunday. So I say that because you don't want to get too wrapped up in the aesthetics of wins. And what do I mean by that? I mean, how does a team smother another team every single week? Do they just destroy them? It really doesn't matter that much in the NFL, but I do think it's interesting to take a look at time to time. And with this Titans team, I do think that there was kind of some evidence that told us, maybe they're not the team that's as great as they were at the end of last year. I mean, because of the way they ended last year, we probably in our heads conveniently ignored what we saw this year. And that was they played the Broncos week 1. They only won by 2 points. And you can be like, all right, they didn't really have training camp, COVID, all that stuff. You win the game and you move on. Then week 2, they play the Jaguars. They win by 3. But the more concerning part is they gave up 30 points to the Jaguars. They win 33-30. They play a Vikings team, and that's not the Vikings team that we're seeing right now. That's playing the Vikings team the first 5 weeks where they were 1-4, and we thought Zimmer might be on the hot seat if he didn't turn things around. They barely beat the Vikings, so that's 3 wins. That's very, very close. Now, we didn't critique it because they aren't a national team. They aren't very popular. No disrespect to Nashville, but it just doesn't get the attention like the Cowboys or the Patriots. Now, again, no disrespect to Tennessee Titans fans who are a good organization, which is very well run, and Mike Vrabel is a terrific head coach. We know that. They're not a national team. They don't have a national profile. So we don't microanalyze every little element of the Titans. Like if this was Cowboys coming off a big year last year, just saying, they obviously didn't, but if they were, they have 3 narrow wins against 3 teams that are completely terrible, or completely lost, I should say. We would spend the entire show talking about that. But we don't do that with Tennessee because they don't have that profile. But it doesn't mean that there weren't a few warning flares to start the season that we missed. There definitely was there. And sometimes you make these assumptions that a team that finishes strong is going to start strong the next year, especially when you have guys like Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown and Ryan Tannehill, who's looked like the real deal. The reality is they lost a lot of key pieces on that O-line, and their defense is absolutely atrocious. Their defense is terrible. I mean, they had the worst team in the league in terms of creating pressure on the quarterback. Their defense is historically bad. So maybe we let the overachievement of last year muddy our thinking a bit of who they've been. But look, they're still a good team. They just might not be that team that we saw go on a run last year. That's all. That's all I'm saying here. And we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, I'm going to dive into just a little bit more because I want to get into what it means when you start to pay a quarterback like Ryan Tannehill. Like, does that change it? Because he isn't what we saw last year. Now, he's still playing good. So I don't want us to act like he's bad because he's still playing good. But there's something different. And is that him? Is that because he got his money already? Or is that because everything else isn't working around him the way it was last year? We're going to get into that, and then we're going to start to finally break down some other games. We're going to bring on my guy, Emmett Weinman, talk all things fantasy. We'll be right back after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon. We are heading into segment number 3, quarter number 3, as we like to do, related to a game. I think we've got a pretty good lead. What would you guys say? Up by a couple touchdowns. Dominated the first half, in my opinion. Hopefully you guys think the same way. Went through a lot of great topics here. Some good content moving forward as well. Got a lot of things to talk about on this busy Saturday. Week 10 into the NFL we come. Week 11 into college football we come. It's Masters week. I cannot believe this is the first time I'm bringing up the Masters. I mean, come on. It's just been beautiful all week. It's so weird watching the Masters in November, but I love every single bit of it. Right now, Dustin Johnson is tied at -9 with Justin Thomas and a bunch of other players. We got a really packed leaderboard, but the way Dustin Johnson is playing right now, I think that this is his tournament to lose. Obviously, love watching Tiger do good. He's about -5 right now. So really love what Dustin's doing. I hope he keeps it up. I would love to see him win the Masters this year if my guy Tiger Woods can, of course. So we'll see how that goes moving forward. A lot of things going on this week, and it's so weird watching the Masters, how they have to end it by 5 o'clock because it gets so dark out. It's crazy seeing that as watching it in November when usually that's not the problem in April when it usually is. But hey, that's what we have to deal with COVID, and I'll take having a Masters in November over no Masters at all. So big games this week in both the college football landscape and the NFL landscape. The college football landscape has unfortunately cut off a couple games because of COVID, but we still have Indiana against Michigan State. Now, Michigan State hasn't done much this year, but the reason I bring up this game, Indiana is someone to watch. They are 3-0. They're playing lights out on offense and defense. They've got a great coach. They've got a good roster, and I can't wait to see how this team keeps progressing. I don't think they'll beat Ohio State. Don't get me wrong, but I think they could give Ohio State a bit of a run for their money, scare them a little bit, maybe for a half, maybe for 3/4. And look, I know you guys are saying, well, what? Then Ohio State wins? Guys, that's where we've come to with Ohio State, though, and Justin Fields and Ryan Day. They are so good. They're just looking to get scared. That's all. They're just looking for a team to give them a fight because that's not happening anywhere. anywhere. So I think Indiana could be that team. Wisconsin, they finally make their return to the football field after missing 2 games, which is so important, because if they missed one more game, they were going to not be able to play in the college football playoff, in the Big Ten championship game, because they made a rule where you have to play at least 6 games to be eligible. I really like what the Pac-12 did. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but the Pac-12, they did something interesting. So they had 2 games get canceled this week because 2 teams had some issues with the virus. Arizona State, Herm Edwards tested positive for COVID-19. Hope he's all right. I love Herm. Herm's a great coach. So their game had to get canceled. And what that meant was, that California, who they were playing Arizona State, they're not going to get to play, even though they're not having any issues with COVID on their team. And then Utah at UCLA, that got canceled as well, because Utah has had issues, but UCLA isn't. So what's happening is California and UCLA are now going to play on Sunday. That's right, on Sunday at I think it's noon Eastern time. So I really like that the Pac-12 gave that flexibility, where it's if 2 games can't happen and it's because of 2 different teams, but the other 2 teams are fine, well, hey, you 2 can go together and play each other. I love that. Now, it's tricky. I'm sure football coaches hate it, because they've been preparing all week for one team, and then 1 day before the game, 2 days before the game, they have to switch over and play some other team. But hey, it's better than not playing at all. And I really wish the Big Ten put that rule in there as well, because that could have saved a lot of teams. Like this week, Ohio State was supposed to play Maryland. Well, guess what? Ohio State doesn't get to play because Maryland's having a lot of COVID positive tests. So that puts, and in the Big Ten, it's really worrisome, because that puts Ohio State in jeopardy. Why? Because Ohio State and the Big Ten, again, you have to play at least 6 games to be eligible for the Big Ten championship game. If you don't make the Big Ten championship game and win it, you're probably not going to make the college football playoff. So now Ohio State doesn't get to play a game because another team is having issues with COVID, not them. Now they have no room for error. What if their team starts to have issues with COVID? They only have room to miss 1 more game. So it's very, very tricky. That's why I really do like that the Pac-12 did that. I wish the Big Ten would have put that involved, but I understand why they didn't. They're just trying to make everything as safe as possible, so I get that. But I think that's a cool little wrinkle that the Pac-12 added. And I'm so happy the Pac-12 is back. We got Oregon State, Washington, 11 p.m. Eastern time, that true Pac-12 after dark game, baby. I love those games. They're so fun. So can't wait for that. And then can't wait for some big NFL games this week. Giants, Eagles, that's a huge game for the NFC East. The Giants have been playing so much better lately. They could still win this division at 2-7, as crazy as it sounds. They really could, though. But the Eagles can also take a strong lead on this division if they win and go to 4-4-1. The Buccaneers at Panthers. How do the Bucs bounce back after a tough, embarrassing loss on Sunday Night Football to the Saints? My favorite game of the week, the Buffalo Bills going all the way out to Arizona to take on the Arizona Cardinals. The Bills coming off a huge win against Seattle. Now they go to Arizona. How do they play there? I can't wait for that. 2 of the most bright stars, young stars in our league, battling it out between Josh Allen and Kyler Murray. By the way, and I'm sure everyone listening to this show has watched Kyler Murray play, but if you haven't, go watch the way he plays. It is so fun to watch. The way he moves with his feet and can throw the ball. He throws a beautiful rainbow ball. I mean, he'll throw it high up in the air, and it will just be perfect. I love watching Kyler Murray. He is so fun to watch, and he is so good. And Josh Allen's really good, too, so that's going to be a great game to watch. Seattle Seahawks at Los Angeles Rams. That's a huge game for the NFC West. If the Rams can win that, then they'll be at 6-3, tied with the Seahawks at 6-3, and that NFC West will be a wild one coming down the stretch. So really excited for that game. And a lot of other great things going on as well. Ravens, Patriots, that should be a fun one on Sunday night. So it's a good week 10 of football. You know, it's crazy that we're in week 10. It really is. Time is flying by. But let's enjoy it while we have it. Now, I want to finish up what I was saying with Tannehill and the Titans. So we were talking about how they're still a good team, but they just might not be the team we saw last year, right? And that's not that because Tannehill is some awful quarterback. No, he's not what he was under Miami and in Miami and under Adam Gase. Look, he was terrible under Adam Gase, and that had a lot to do with the coaching and the team that he was with. It wasn't a good team. He's on a good team now. He's in a better atmosphere, better coaching staff. He's much better. He really is a really good quarterback. But remember, Tannehill got paid this offseason. And money can change you, right? I mean, money can seriously change you. Now, it can change you for the worse, but it can also change you for the better. You know, if you're a really good person inside, you get a lot of money, you can be charitable. But what money cannot do is it can't change your skill set. It can change your personality, right? Definitely change your personality. You can become reckless, or you can become uber focused, whatever. You can become, mean. You can become nicer. Doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it can change your personality, but it cannot change your skill set. That is yours. That is theirs. Now, you can work on it. You can build your craft. You can build on your craft. But for the most part, this is who you are. Throwing money at that doesn't change it. Now, Ryan Tannehill fully deserved his money. There's no doubt about that. But maybe this is the Ryan Tannehill that we are seeing right now. And the Tannehill last year was a little bit inflated by the great play of the entire team around him. See, when a team plays good, it uplifts everyone, especially the QB. So then when a team loses key players, when injuries happen, that team puts more emphasis on the QB. Puts a lot more pressure on the QB, puts a lot more than responsibility on the QB. And that is what is happening right now with Ryan Tannehill. While, look, the numbers are pretty. They're pretty good. I mean, 20 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. I love the low interceptions. He doesn't turn the ball over much. He's very efficient. They paid him, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. But, and don't get me wrong here, for all you Titans fans, please don't come at me for this, but it's because it's not a negative comment. But is Ryan Tannehill really anything more than Alex Smith was 5 years ago before he got really hurt? Which is not a problem. It's not a knock at all. Alex Smith went to the NFC Championship game with the 49ers. He made the playoffs almost every year with the Chiefs. He did, but just you can't win the big game. You can't win the playoff game. But he did a lot of great things. And, maybe it takes a few more, he just doesn't take the shots down the field. It's a lot of check downs. He takes more than Alex Smith does, of course. That's the one difference. But maybe he can keep evolving and get better and better. And their OC, Arthur Smith, has just been really, really good. So if he doesn't get a head coaching job, maybe they can build some more continuity and he can get better under him. I do think Arthur Smith will eventually, if it's not this year, then next year will get a head coaching job because he's done a great job with Ryan Tannehill in this offense. But I think Ryan Tannehill is a guy that needs all facets of the game to be working for him to be at his best. Again, he is a good quarterback. 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, that's really good. But he isn't someone that says, hey, I'm going to put this team on my back and I'm going to carry you guys. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But it just means that everyone else on the team's got to be good. And when your punter is muffing punts from his end zone, that's not going to cut it. When you're allowing punts to get blocked for touchdowns, that's not going to cut it. And most importantly, when Derrick Henry is not doing what we all assume Derrick Henry to do, it's not going to cut it. And again, he ran for 100 yards. That's good. But that's not what we expect in Derrick Henry. We expect much more. And it was a quiet 100. Wasn't a big-time, heartbreaking, pound him in the face 100. Wasn't that. Now, this Titans team, they could get hot just like they did last year, and I'll be excited to see it. But right now, I don't think this Titans team is going to scare many people in the postseason unless that run game and that defense can get much, much better. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm your host, Kayvon. Hope everyone's having a great day. Excited for some football today and tomorrow as we head into Week 10 of the NFL and Week 11 of college football. Time is seriously flying in the NFL. I hate it. I am glad that we've gotten this far, though, but I hate that we are getting close to, not close to the season's ending, but it's getting closer to it, which is never fun, it's great. It's been a great season. It's been as good as it can. I've heard some people complaining about the play and stuff like that, but really, guys, for what's happened with COVID and then the no training camp, barely any offseason, it's been as good as it can get. And now for college football, at least, we get all the Power Fives back into it. We got a lot going on. We really do. And we should be thankful for that. We should be lucky that we have that because we could have had no football at all. And that would have been awful. That would have been straight up awful. Nobody wants that. I don't know what I would have done with myself all year, all fall, towards the winter if we did not have football. So I'm very, very happy and grateful. And look, why cases rise in the country, they're going to rise in the football world as well. It's just that simple. They're not in a bubble. Okay, this isn't in the NHL. This isn't the NBA, the MLB, where they had the luxury of going in the bubble. The MLB wasn't even in the bubble until the playoffs, and then they were smart to go into a bubble for that, so their playoffs didn't get messed up or factored in with COVID. So that was good by them. But the college football and the NFL, it's too big. Each team is too big. They cannot go into bubbles. Now, they can do it within their own region, and I think some teams are starting to do that as you get closer to the playoffs, and I think some teams have been doing that. I know the Saints talked about it, and a couple others where, especially once you get towards the playoff time of year, you kind of quarantine into a hotel, and that's where you are for the rest of the season, which is smart because the last thing that you want to happen is you get into the playoffs and a big player goes down with COVID, especially with what's going on with the contact tracing. That's the biggest thing, guys. A lot of these, it looks bad because a lot of the news is, this person gets put on IR/COVID list. This person is in the quarantine for COVID. But it's not most of the time. Now, some players are testing positive. They are. But majority of these players are just being quarantined and put on that list because they were in contact with the person that actually got tested positive with COVID. So you have to really look into the headlines. Don't just read Big Ben goes on the COVID-19 list, because that would make you think, Big Ben has COVID. No, that's not it. Big Ben was in contact with Vance McDonald, who has officially tested positive for COVID. So then, because of the contact tracing, Big Ben had to quarantine for at least 5 days and pass a bunch of tests as negative before he could come back. So it's 2020. Fake news is everywhere. Read the headline. Because I see a lot of people freaking out. How is football still going on when you have all these tests? And it's like, look, this is happening all around the world, first of all, okay? Second, it's football. It's going to keep going on. But third, it's not as bad as it looks because it's not that everyone's testing positive. They're actually doing the right thing. The contact tracing is so smart. The NFL, they're being diligent with it. They're actually taking the time to make sure that players that are near other players that actually tested positive, they got to get away. And the college football is doing that too, and that's the right thing to do because if you leave them in there with the team, that's how an outbreak happens because this virus, it can take a while to actually show up as positive. So just because Vance McDonald tested positive and Big Ben didn't, it doesn't mean that he's not going to. So that's why they quarantine for 5-6 days, because he could then test positive tomorrow or the next day or the next day. It has to be a certain amount of period where we know, okay, he officially did not get the virus. And that's actually what happened, by the way, for this example. Big Ben is going to play tomorrow on Sunday. He quarantined all week. He did not practice. He just worked from his quarantine hotel room or house, wherever he quarantined at. So does that make you uneasy in terms of how he's going to play on the field? Not to me, because he has been with the Steelers and, more importantly, with Mike Tomlin for how many years now? I mean, 10 plus years. So he knows everything about Mike Tomlin's system. He knows everything that they do throughout practice. And he was still going over the playbook and watching film on Cincinnati at home. He just couldn't get out there and practice. Now, for Big Ben specifically, he doesn't practice much anyways, because he's always banged up and he takes a lot of days off for practice. So, that's not a big deal to me. Now, when you get into the territory of rookies and, new coaches, new systems, stuff like that, that's when you have to start worrying about, okay, if they don't practice all week and play, is their play going to decrease? Is it going to dip? And I understand that part of it. But I think overall for this situation and for the majority of situations, especially the veterans, I would not be worried that a player then goes out there and stinks it up or something because they don't practice all week. They've been in the NFL long enough to understand how a game week works. So that's just always watch the headline is the whole goal of what I'm saying here. Understand what you're looking at here. Understand, is it someone that actually tested positive for COVID-19, or are they being quarantined because of contact tracing? And that tells a lot. Like last week, or I think it was last week, the Ravens had like 10 players that had to quarantine, but it was all because of contact tracing, But a lot of people looked at that and said, holy crap, the entire Ravens team tested positive. No, that's not the case. They had to quarantine, and they all ended up playing the next day. Now, when it becomes unfortunate is if you get in contact with someone that had the virus like 2 days before the game, then you're not going to play, okay? You have to be able to, and that's fair, you shouldn't play. You have to pass the same guidelines as everyone else. You have to be quarantined for 5 days and make sure that you for sure did not catch the virus and you were just near it. That's the big key. But I do wish my prayers and for everyone that has been, involved with this virus in a terrible way, whether you had it or you know someone that's had it or know someone that's passed away, our heart and prayers go out to you, because it has been very unfortunate and it's terrible, and hopefully this will end as soon as possible. This is the GSMC Football Podcast, and until then, we just have to keep on fighting. We just have to keep getting through this, and we will get through it as we have so far. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we are going to head into segment number 4, quarter number 4, and we are going to finish up the show. We'll talk some fantasy. We'll talk some more games. Got a big game, speaking of the Ravens, this weekend against the Patriots. What's wrong with Lamar Jackson? Huh? Has teams figured Lamar Jackson out, or is Lamar just having a bad year? There's a big difference in this. We're going to talk about it right after this. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Quarter number four, segment number 4, as we do, throw up the 4 fingers. If you're driving, don't do it, but everyone else, I'm picturing you with your 4 fingers up right now, just like they do in football games, college specifically, as we head into the 4th quarter of the GSMC football podcast. So happy to be with you guys today. Thank you everyone for listening, as we've had a great show, a lot of great content so far. We started off talking about Bill Belichik mainly, but really just in general how players have become more important than schemes. And it's just truth. You know, I gave you guys so many examples, and I can go on and on and on. The players are the most important, okay? The coaches are great, and the coaches help out so much. But at the end of the day, the players are what creates everything. The players get it going, and then the coach's system takes it over the top, all right? And we're seeing that with Bill Belichik and the Patriots this year. They just don't have the horses. They don't have the guys. They don't have the dudes, as you like to call it. They've got some good players. They don't have any great players. They don't have any help, defense or offense. They just don't. And that's because they didn't draft well. And it's not that they didn't draft it well for 1 year. They haven't drafted well for 4, 5, 6 years. And when you don't draft well for numerous years in a row, it adds up. And it puts a team in a huge lull. And the only way to get out of that is by drafting well or hitting on free agency really, really well. Usually it has to be a mix of both. For most teams, it has to be a mix of both. The Patriots never were in that situation because they had Tom Brady. So they had Tom Brady, as in they had the dude, they had the guy, the superstar, and then they had Bill Belichik to put the rest of the pieces together and bring him over the top. But Brady started it. Brady created the fire, created the magic, and then Belichick sprinkled the dust on the top to create the shebang, to end it all. It's just the best example I can say, right? To hike Mount Everest, you can be in great shape. Lungs can be perfect. You can have the best tour guy, the guys that help you get up, whatever they're called, out there. But you're not doing that unless you have the right equipment, the right shoes, the right tools that you have to use to get up that mountain. It's just not happening. Now, once you have the right tools, then everything else becomes important. Then the tour guide becomes important. Then the being in good shape becomes important. But you're just not going to do it without the tools, without the dudes. So you have Tom Brady, right? Well, then having a guy like Edelman becomes very, very important. Having a coach like Bill Belichik that can coach up that defense becomes very, very important. But all of that is meaningless without the dude, without the guy, And that's the main thing that I'm getting at here. It's the same thing. LeBron James. Yeah, look, and this is no knock on Belichick. This is no knock on Tyronn Lue or Greg Popovich and all those Pete Carroll that I mentioned. LeBron James played Golden State Warriors in 2015. He took them 6 games without his second best player and his third best player, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. Both of them were gone, okay? He had the coach named David Blatt. 2016, David Blatt was gone. In comes Tyronn Lue as head coach. What happened? LeBron and the Cavs beat the Warriors in 7 games. One more game than what was last year. They went one more game, but this time the Cavs won. Why? Kyrie Irving was there and Kevin Love was there. He had help. He had teammates. He had more dudes. It wasn't the coaching change. It was that he had more guys with him. The players set the tone. Look, if look at this Patriot team right now. If you told me Cam Newton has DK Metcalf, which, by the way, the Patriots actually took N'Keal Harry over DK Metcalf in that draft. So, say he has DK Metcalf. Say he has Nick Chubb, someone where they actually took Sony Michel, Nick Chubb's Georgia teammate, over Nick Chubb in that same draft. Say he has those 2 guys. Oh, this is a team then. Because then you have Cam Newton, the dude, you have DK Metcalf, the dude, and you have Nick Chubb, the dude. And then Belichick's schemes, his schematic game plan, will then lift them up over some of the other teams, and they'll be a much better team. It's all about the players. The players are so important, especially in professional sports and college sports as well, but especially in professional sports. College sports, coaching is so important in both, and it matters. So I'm not trying to undermine coaching because it's a very big deal, but so are the players. And Bill Belichik is seeing this hardcore this time, and he is feeling the need to stick up for himself. He's being defensive, and I get it. He hasn't been in this situation in nearly 20 years. It's a change for him. It's a change. But I bet you this season already, he is doing a lot of drafting analysis. He's watching a lot of college football. And if he isn't, then you sure as bet his scouts are. There is no doubt about that. All right, he's not skipping that over. Look, he became lackadaisical with the draft process. Can you blame him? They made the Super Bowl every single year or every other year pretty much. He had his system, he had a way, and it worked. So he said, He got lackadaisical with it, he got lazy with it, and let's say what it is. He got a little arrogant. He thought that no matter who's playing, his system will work. He tried to kick out Tom Brady one time. He thought he was done. He wanted Jimmy G. Tom Brady said, no, sir. He went up to Robert Kraft, didn't let that happen. And they went to 3 more Super Bowls, and they won 2 of them. It's a good thing Tom Brady stayed. With Jimmy G, look at him right now. Who knows what would happen? And Jimmy G has one of the best coaches in the game as his head coach right now. And last year, that 49ers team was great. They had the best defensive line in the game. This year, those players get hurt. Nick Bosa goes down with injury. Richard Sherman goes down with injury. DeForest Buckner gets traded to the Colts. Next thing you know, you're decimated. Your players, your dudes, they're gone. And coaching can only take you so far after that. It can only take you so far. And coaching is important because a coach like Bill Belichick and a coach like Kyle Shanahan, that's the difference of that team being literally one of the worst teams in the league with all those injuries and all those lack of players for the Patriots, lack of dudes for the Patriots, to being a team that might win 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 games if they're lucky. That's the difference in coaching, which is important, which is very important. But I think that Bill Belichick is going to put a lot more emphasis on the draft process moving forward now that he sees the big difference when Tom Brady is gone. It's the reason Tom Brady left, guys. I keep saying it over and over. Tom Brady looked at the situation. He said, I was lucky as all get out that I went 12-4 with this roster last year. But now look, Edelman's getting older a year. Clearly, N'Keal Harry's not that great. Tom Brady's had 2 years with him. He's noticed that. The defense is getting worse. A lot of players are opting out for COVID. This was before COVID when he made this decision, but still. Well, it wasn't before COVID, but it was before players opted out. He saw, Sony Michel's, he's all right. James White is okay. Who do I have? And then he looked down in Tampa and he said, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate. Can I bring Gronk? Can I bring AB? And look at that defense. Dominic Sue, Jason Pierre-Paul, that secondary, come on. Devin White, one of the best young linebackers in the game, I'm going down there. Love you, New England. It was a blast, but goodbye. And he packed up real quick. It's all about the players, and it's all about the players, and the coaches take them over the top. Coaching is important, but the players are the most important. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm your host, Kayvon Izami. Hope everyone's having a great day. All right, I want to move on to something here about, there's been a big topic with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Now, listen, the Ravens are sitting here at 6-2. So do I think that this conversation is exaggerated a bit? Yes, I do. Because at the end of the day, the Ravens are 6-2, okay? That they lost to the undefeated Steelers by 4 points. 4 points, and they were driving at the end of that game, almost scored, And Lamar had, 4 turnovers that game, and they still only lost by 4? Like, they are still a really good football team. Their point differential is plus 85, which is better than the Steelers, which is plus 74. The only point differential that is better than theirs in the entire AFC is the Chiefs, which is plus 103. So the fact that everyone's freaking out saying this isn't a good football team, you're wrong on that, okay? Actually, now that I look at the NFC too, the Ravens have the second best point differential in the entire league behind the Chiefs at 103. So this is a good football team. So let's pump the brakes on that. Now, does Lamar look like he did last year? No, he doesn't. He definitely took a step back. But, man, I told people this from the beginning. I remember going into our fantasy draft. And, yes, I know we're talking about real football here, but I want to bring it because you can tie this in here. And, my brother-in-law, Matt, was saying how, because he had Lamar last year, and he won the league. And everyone out there listening, if you had Lamar, you probably won your fantasy league too, unless the rest of your team was just awful. He had Lamar, and he was like, dude, I'm totally going to take a high draft pick on Lamar again. And I was like, why would you do that? I was like, look back at the history of the NFL. When have we ever seen a person that has an unbelievable, historic season and then comes back the next year and has just as good as a season? Never. It was obvious that Lamar was going to take a step back. It was so obvious. That doesn't happen. Even Patrick Mahomes took a step back after his MVP year. Now, he's putting up those big-time numbers again this year, but you take a step back. What Lamar did has never happened before in the NFL. He ran for the most rushing yards in the single season in the NFL history. Like, he's going to take a step back. And this year, he's not looking as good. Okay? He's not. His numbers are off. Last year, he threw for 3,127 yards, 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. This year, halfway, 8 games in, he's thrown for 1,513 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. All right, so he already has 4. He had 4 interceptions. He had 6 total last year. He only has 12 touchdowns through 8 games. He had 36 total last year. He's not going to catch those numbers, right? That's just not going to happen. But the question becomes, is this just him taking a step back? Or is he really having some issues out there? Like, is his play regressing? Are teams starting to figure him out? And I think that becomes the interesting question, right? Because I do think that teams are starting to figure him out a little bit. And, he went on the Rich Eisen show, and this is the big topic all week, where he told Rich Eisen he hears players calling out their plays. And listen, just like the defensive coordinator or the offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, said to the media this week after Lamar said that, every offense does that. Look, these guys, they're studying your film, okay? They hear the plays that you call. Now, obviously, the smart organizations, they change up the names and stuff like that, but they hear the plays that you call, so they're going to get up there and they're going to call the plays to mess with you. It's some bantering, It's what you do. Now, the question is, do they really know their play? Or are they just, okay, we saw this formation in film, and I think it went to this word, let's call this out. All right, like that happens in the NFL. They're doing that to throw you off, to think that they really do know the play. And sometimes they really might know the play. And the only way that they really know the play almost every time, though, is if the Ravens are just running the same thing over and over again. And to me, it kind of feels like they are. Because Lamar was such a cheat code last year. He was so amazing when he got the ball in his hands that it was almost like it didn't matter what play you ran. Because he was going to make some magic happen. He was either going to run right by you, throw you into a twirl and a twist, and have you standing on your head while he looks back in the end zone. Or he was going to scare you so much with his legs that he hit you right down the middle to Mark Andrews for the touchdown. Like that. Those type of things were happening all last season. This season, that's not happening. So it almost feels like they are just trying to run the same plays, though, and it's not as dynamic. So that becomes, is that on the coaching? Now, I do want to say this. The Ravens do not have the best weapons. And this was overlooked last year because Lamar was so good he made up for it. Before last year, who was Mark Andrews? No one knew of him, but he became a really good tight end under Lamar. All right, Marquise Hollywood Brown, he's in his second year. Yeah, he was a good player in Oklahoma. He's not that big of a guy. He's a speedster, but one thing we know about speedsters, you got to be able to open up the field for them. You need to take the attention away from them so that they can blow the defense over the top. They don't have a number one receiver like that can take the tension away. They don't. Willie Snead, he's good. Like I said, Hollywood Brown, he's good. Hayden Hurst went to the Falcons, so that takes the tight end away. And Mark Andrews is still a good tight end, but he's not having the season that he had last year. No one is on this Ravens team. Not even the run game. Mark Ingram, he's been hurt. He's been in and out of the lineup. J.K. Dobbins, they haven't been using him the way we thought he was going to. They use him here and there, and when they do use him, he runs for a good 4.2, 4.3 yards a carry, which is very good in the NFL. But it's not the same run game that we saw last year. Now, the defense is still amazing. The defense is way better than it was last year, and that's the difference. That they put emphasis on making this defense better this year because they got run over in the playoff game against Tennessee, and they decided we're not going to let that happen. So they go out and get a guy like Calais Campbell, who has been just wonders for this team. He is such a good player. And they really just shaped up this defense a lot. They drafted Patrick Queen out of LSU, who's been a good player so far. He's had his ups and downs, no doubt, but he's been decent. And they have a good secondary. So the defense is what's hanging on and carrying them around, right? But the offense hasn't been as bad as everybody wants to say. Yes, Lamar's taken a big step back. I don't think it's for good, though. That's the question. I don't think this is going to be something where every year we keep seeing regression. No, Lamar's just got to work. He's got to change it up. He's got to work on his passing. He's got to work on spreading the field. And he also needs help. He needs some more weapons. He needs that big guy that he can throw the ball to when he's in help and when he's in desperate help. And that's why they went and tried to sign Des Bryant. Look, it's a throw at the dart when you're 2 a.m. hammered, right? They're just hoping that they can hit bullseye, and Dez somehow turns back into this amazing receiver that he used to be. It's not going to happen. Can he be a good player? He can be all right, probably, at best. What he will be is he'll be great in the locker room. He's thankful for this opportunity. He's wanted this opportunity for a long time, so you can tell he's grateful, and I'm happy for him. He deserves this type of opportunity. But he's not going to be your number one guy, your Julio Jones, your Antonio Brown, your D-Hop, anything like that. It should have been them trying to trade for DeAndre Hopkins. It should have been them trying to trade for someone that they can bring in to be their number one guy. They didn't do that. They focused on the defense instead, which, again, is smart. They needed to after what happened in that playoff game. But the Ravens are a team just like the Titans, but even more so. They have to get up early and stay up, okay? Because if they get up early, they'll run the clock out. Lamar still can do a lot of things with his legs, which is super impressive, which is, very, very impressive. But they've got to be up because once they're down, Lamar is not throwing them back into that game. He just hasn't gotten to that point yet. He hasn't. I do believe he can get there, though. I really do. I mean, he's lost 5 games his entire career. So people pump the brakes. He is 25-5 in 3 seasons as an NFL quarterback. 25-5. He has lost a total of 5 games throughout his 3 years, 2.5 years now. It's incredible. All right? He is still a really good quarterback. And listen, he's not a good passer. He threw for 36 touchdowns. 36 touchdowns. He led the league in passing last year. 3,000 yards and 36 touchdowns. He is a workhorse. He is going to improve. And most importantly, he loves football. And that is important, okay? Some of these guys, they don't love football. They just love the idea of it. They love that they make a great living off of it. They like to be in the locker room, all that stuff, but they don't love playing all the time. They don't love to keep working at it. Lamar loves football, and he loves getting better and better each week, and we're going to see him get better and better each year, okay? He might have a down year. He might. Compared to, because everyone's looking for that year that he had last year. That's not coming. It's not. Okay? That was an insane season that we don't see but every once in a while, that we've never seen before. Okay? He ran for 1,206 yards in a single season. All right, then no one's ever done that, not even Mike Vick. 36 touchdowns, led the league, 82.3 QBR. The guy is a good quarterback. He's having a bit of a regression. Get him some more weapons. Let him work a little bit more. Let him get to understand the offense a little bit more. Expand the offense. Don't try and hide. Don't try and save him or cover him from anything. No, expand the offense. Give him more complicated stuff. Let him learn. And he will get better. I guarantee it. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I really, really thank everyone for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, reach out to me at Kayvon_sports, at GSMC_football. Let me know if I am right, you love Solo Dolo, or if it's my girlfriend Emily that's right. Please, 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 guys, I need this. For all my guys out there, you know what it's like when you win an argument. You know what it's like, right? You get a little bit of brag in you. You can go out there and brag a little bit more. It's fun. So, but let me know. Solo Dolo, is it cool or is it a little quirky, huh? All right, you know where to reach out to me on that. Also, give me your takes. Let me know what you think about, everything going on, college, NFL. I will let out all of y'all's tweets here on the show, as I always do. But thank you for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us out. Also, if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Enjoy your weekend of college football. Enjoy your weekend of NFL. Put your feet up, drink your beer, drink your wine. Have a good one. Be safe, be smart. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.